Emma and Lucas thought their quiet neighborhood was safe, but a stranger had been watching their every move. What started as harmless messages online quickly turned into a nightmare they could never have imagined, forcing their community to face a predator hiding in plain sight. It was a quiet neighborhood, the kind where the streets were lined with maple trees and the sound of children playing on bicycles filled the air. Mailboxes were painted bright colors, and neighbors waved to each other as they walked their dogs. On the surface, everything seemed perfect. Friendly faces, well-kept lawns, and the kind of calm that made people feel safe letting their kids ride scooters or play in the yard. Parents trusted that the world beyond their fences was as simple and kind as it appeared. But beneath that calm, unseen eyes were watching, and not everyone had good intentions. For months, there had been small hints, barely noticeable at first. A child would come home with messages on their tablet from someone they didn't know. A parent might notice a stranger lingering near the playground, always staying just out of reach of attention. At first, these signs seemed like coincidences or harmless mistakes. The neighborhood was tight-knit, and everyone wanted to believe the best about each other. People shrugged off unease with phrases like, "It's probably nothing," or "They're just being friendly." But there was a pattern forming, and the quiet neighborhood was about to be shaken. The predator was careful, deliberate, and patient. They knew the rhythms of suburban life, the times when children played outside, when parents were distracted by work, and when the neighborhood was most vulnerable. The suspect's movements were subtle, almost invisible, blending in with the ordinary activities of daily life. To the casual observer, there was nothing unusual, no hint that someone was observing from the shadows. This careful manipulation made the predator even more dangerous because it allowed them to operate without detection, feeding off the trust and routine that families relied on so heavily. Even local authorities had only vague suspicions. There had been occasional reports of inappropriate online conversations and fleeting encounters that seemed strange, but there was no evidence strong enough to take action. Investigators reviewed logs and scanned online activity, trying to find a thread that would lead them to the truth. Meanwhile, the predator continued their work, believing they were untouchable, hidden in plain sight. It was a chilling reminder that danger often does not announce itself with warning signs or dramatic moments. Sometimes it grows quietly, almost imperceptibly, until the consequences are unavoidable. Life in the neighborhood went on, unaware of the storm brewing just beneath the surface. Children laughed in front yards, parents shared gossip over fences, and the sense of safety created a false comfort. But every click of a keyboard, every message sent, and every small interaction online could bring unseen danger closer. The predator exploited this, understanding that the very things that made the neighborhood idyllic, trust, routine, and innocence, were the tools of their manipulation. What no one realized was that the calm of the streets, the laughter of children, and the open doors were exactly what allowed the predator to operate for as long as they had. The stage was set. The predator had established a rhythm, weaving themselves into the unnoticed corners of digital and physical spaces alike. The quiet neighborhood, once a symbol of safety, was about to become the setting for a carefully orchestrated investigation. No one could have guessed that the next steps would expose the predator in a way that would leave the entire community reeling, questioning how someone could hide such darkness in the midst of everyday life. The investigation began slowly, almost imperceptibly, with small clues that seemed insignificant at first. A vigilant parent had noticed unusual messages appearing on their child's tablet, messages that hinted at conversations far beyond what a typical child should be exposed to. At first, it was easy to dismiss them. Kids were curious and often explored online spaces without much understanding of the risks. But something about the tone, the persistence, and the timing of these messages made the parent uneasy. They took screenshots, saved the logs, and reached out to authorities, setting in motion a chain of events that would eventually unravel a predator's carefully hidden life. Detectives immediately recognized the challenge. The suspect was cautious, using multiple devices, fake accounts, and anonymous profiles to communicate. Each interaction had been meticulously crafted to appear harmless or friendly, but patterns began to emerge under close scrutiny. Investigators analyzed IP addresses, cross-referencing data from multiple platforms. Every message, every click, every minor mistake left a trail that slowly began to form a map of the predator's digital world. What seemed like chaos on the surface was actually a detailed web of manipulation, carefully designed to avoid detection. The deeper the investigators dug, the more they realized how sophisticated the predator had become. Technology became both a shield and a trap. While the predator relied on anonymity, every device used, every network accessed, and every login left traces that could be followed. Investigators spent hours tracing these digital shadows, connecting dots that were invisible to anyone else. Each clue revealed more about the predator's methods, how they gained trust, how they isolated victims, and how they maintained a facade of normalcy. The work was painstaking, requiring patience and attention to detail, but it was necessary to ensure that when the moment came to act, there would be no room for error. As the net slowly tightened, authorities began to piece together the predator's identity. It was not someone who stood out in the neighborhood or had a visible criminal history. To most people, they appeared ordinary, even respectable. This made the investigation more complex because the suspect had mastered the art of blending in, hiding behind the routines and structures of everyday life. Their interactions online were carefully staged, their persona designed to lure children while avoiding suspicion from adults. Yet the more investigators studied the patterns, the more the cracks in this facade became apparent. Small inconsistencies, overlooked details, and repeated behaviors began to form a trail that could not be ignored. The digital world, once thought to provide complete anonymity, had become the predator's undoing. Every calculated message and carefully timed post carried with it traces of evidence, subtle fingerprints that connected one account to another. The investigators worked methodically, mapping out networks, identifying possible locations, and predicting behaviors based on the suspect's history. It was a slow process, filled with anticipation and frustration, but with each passing day, the predator was being drawn closer to a confrontation they had never anticipated. The careful balance of patience, technology, and observation was beginning to tip in favor of justice, setting the stage for a dramatic moment that exposed the predator completely. The operation to catch the predator moved into its most delicate phase, one that required extreme precision and patience. Investigators knew that any misstep could allow the suspect to vanish, erasing months of painstaking work. They created a controlled environment online, designing a fake profile that would appear as an innocent child, someone the predator might see as vulnerable and approachable. Every detail was calculated. The age, interests, even the types of questions and comments the profile would post. It had to feel authentic, something that would not trigger suspicion, yet compelling enough to draw the predator in. Days turned into tense weeks as the predator engaged with the profile. Every message was monitored, every response analyzed for intent, tone, and timing. Investigators noted the way the suspect tried to manipulate conversations, the way they tested boundaries and probed for personal information. It was both unnerving and revealing, showing the depth of planning and predatory behavior that had been masked by ordinary appearances. The online interactions became a digital chess game, each side waiting, probing, and anticipating the next move, though only one was aware of the stakes. The tension in the investigation was compounded by the unpredictability of human behavior. While the predator followed patterns, they were not entirely predictable, and the team had to remain flexible. Strategies were adjusted daily, sometimes hourly, based on the suspect's responses. Every message was logged, time-stamped, and analyzed, building a comprehensive picture of how the predator operated, how they thought, and how they might act in a real-world encounter. The investigators understood that this careful observation was crucial. Rushing the operation could risk alerting the suspect, while hesitation could allow more potential victims to be exposed. As the predator's confidence grew, so did the sense of danger. They believed they were in control, unaware that every move had been anticipated, recorded, and analyzed. This sense of invulnerability was their weakness. Investigators noticed patterns in the suspect's behavior that revealed their willingness to meet in person, a critical opportunity that could lead to an arrest. Timing was everything. The team had to ensure that when the predator took the bait, law enforcement could intervene immediately, safely, and with irrefutable evidence. The suspense reached its peak as the suspect proposed a meeting. The choice of location, time, and method were all carefully considered to minimize risk and maximize the likelihood of capture. Investigators coordinated every detail with precision, mapping out contingencies and preparing for every possible scenario. The predator, confident and unsuspecting, believed they were orchestrating a secret encounter. They had no idea that the profile they had been grooming for weeks was a trap designed to expose their crimes. The meticulous planning, patient observation, and careful manipulation of digital interactions had brought the investigation to the critical point where justice was no longer theoretical. It was imminent. Every hour leading up to the planned encounter was filled with tension, anticipation, and careful preparation. The predator's actions were predictable enough to allow law enforcement to anticipate their moves, yet unpredictable enough to require constant vigilance. The online trap had worked. drawing out the suspect's true intentions. And now, with the meeting arranged, the operation was ready to move from the digital shadows into the physical world, where the final act of the investigation would unfold. The day of the planned meeting arrived with a quiet intensity. Law enforcement had transformed an ordinary location into a carefully controlled environment, with officers positioned strategically, cameras capturing every angle, and backup ready for any unexpected turn. The predator, completely unaware of what awaited, approached the meeting with confidence, believing they were in control of the encounter. Every step they took, every movement, was being monitored in real time, a meticulous choreography designed to ensure that nothing could go wrong. From the moment the suspect entered the area, as the tension was palpable, investigators watched as they scanned the surroundings, checking for signs of anyone who might observe or interfere. The predator's body language revealed a mix of anticipation and certainty, unaware that this calculated approach was their undoing. Cameras captured every detail, the way they handled their phone, the cautious glances, the subtle attempts to remain inconspicuous. Each action, once invisible in the predator's mind, was now a permanent record of their intentions. When the suspect finally reached the designated spot, officers moved into position. The arrest was executed with precision, leaving no room for escape. Every precaution had been taken to ensure the safety of both the team and the community, and the suspect was quickly restrained. Evidence from the site, digital devices, notes, and other items was immediately secured. Each item told a story, revealing the extent of the predator's planning and the disturbing depth of their deception. What had been invisible and secretive for so long was now laid bare, undeniable and complete. The arrest sent a shockwave through the community. Neighbors who had once felt secure suddenly confronted the reality that someone capable of such manipulations had been living among them. The predator's facade of normalcy had been perfect, blending seamlessly into the rhythms of everyday life. Yet, in a single moment, the careful illusion shattered, exposing the true danger that had lurked quietly beneath the surface. Investigators knew that capturing the suspect in the act was crucial, not only to ensure justice but also to prevent further harm. The evidence collected during the operation would leave no room for doubt, proving that the predator had been actively engaged in illegal and dangerous behavior. The aftermath of the arrest was intense. The predator's home and digital devices were thoroughly searched, revealing additional evidence that confirmed the pattern of behavior investigators had suspected. Every account, message, and document was meticulously cataloged, creating a comprehensive record of the crimes. Law enforcement coordinated with prosecutors to ensure that the case was airtight, leaving no opportunity for the suspect to evade responsibility. The operation, which had required months of careful planning, patience, and vigilance, had succeeded in dismantling a hidden network of manipulation and threat. As the predator was taken into custody, the neighborhood began the long process of reckoning with what had happened. Families, once unaware of the danger in their midst, confronted the reality of how easily trust could be exploited. The arrest was a turning point, a moment where vigilance, preparation, and courage intersected to prevent further harm. The predator, once confident and invisible, was now powerless, facing the full consequences of their actions. The community would never forget the shock of discovery, but in that moment, there was also relief, a recognition that the threat had been neutralized and that justice had, finally, been served. The community was left shaken in the weeks following the arrest. What had once felt like a safe, ordinary neighborhood now seemed fragile and vulnerable. A place where the hidden dangers lurking online and in plain sight became painfully real. Parents watched their children more closely, asking questions about who they interacted with, both on devices and in person. Conversations that had previously been casual now carried a weight of caution, as families struggled to reconcile the reality of what had occurred with the normalcy they had once taken for granted. Despite the fear, there was a sense of relief that the predator had been caught in the act before any more children could be harmed. Authorities worked tirelessly to close the case, compiling every piece of evidence from digital devices, online messages, and surveillance recordings. Prosecutors reviewed the material, carefully constructing a case that could withstand any challenge in court. The investigation had uncovered a meticulous pattern of manipulation, deception, and predatory behavior, and the documentation left no room for doubt. Each piece of evidence reinforced the narrative that the suspect had operated with intent and premeditation, exploiting trust and innocence for their own purposes. It was a stark reminder of how carefully predators can hide in plain sight, even in communities where people feel most secure. In the aftermath, schools and community organizations took immediate steps to educate children and parents about online safety. Workshops were organized to teach families how to recognize warning signs, how to report suspicious behavior, and how to protect children in an increasingly digital world. The case became a turning point for local awareness, emphasizing that vigilance was not paranoia, but a necessary part of keeping children safe. Parents began to discuss safety strategies openly, creating a network of communication and support that extended beyond individual households. The predator's exposure served as a catalyst for long-term change, fostering a more informed and cautious community. The predator faced the full weight of the legal system. Charges were filed, and the trial proceeded with compelling evidence that left little room for doubt. The courtroom revealed the extent of the suspect's planning and manipulative strategies, exposing the depth of the deception to the public. While the details were disturbing, the case ultimately served as a demonstration of how law enforcement, technology, and vigilance could intersect to prevent further harm. Each piece of evidence that had been meticulously collected played a crucial role in ensuring accountability and protecting potential future victims. Even as the neighborhood began to heal, the impact of the events lingered. Families remained cautious, but there was also a renewed sense of community and resilience. Parents became more proactive, children more aware, and neighbors more connected in watching over one another. The case became a cautionary story, a reminder that predators often operate quietly, hidden behind ordinary appearances, but that careful observation, persistence, and decisive action could expose them. The arrest, the evidence, and the community response demonstrated that even the darkest threats could be confronted and stopped. Life slowly returned to a semblance of normal, but the lessons learned endured, shaping a safer, more vigilant community determined not to allow darkness to go unnoticed again.